Welcome to the AskOkey podcast here in Studio One. My name's Pete, as you know, and I'm pleased to have with me the Proff. This evening we'll be talking about AskOkey suits. We'll be talking about clothes for the autumn and the winter, different colors, different fabrics, and in general the usual sort of free association that we get up to on these podcasts. So, without further ado, Okey, let's get started.
Thank you, Pete. Always a pleasure
welcome.
to have you in Studio
Most
One.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have two interesting figures this evening. There's the Proff, who looks like he's off to the racetrack, and there's me, who looks like he's either going to a funeral
Or the office.
or going to work in a bank or something like that. Something possibly a rather old-fashioned solicitor, or maybe even an undertaker. And I wore this suit this evening because I thought, why not? And I was expecting the Proff would turn up in something similar, something subdued and reticent. And what did I find? An extraordinary display of light brown plaid.
Exuberance.
Exuberant is the only way, I think, to describe it. Now, it's a three-piece, in the Proff's case, it's a three-piece, two-roll three jacket. The waistcoat has lapels, as you can see, so it's the full rig. It's about as far as AskOkey can go in terms of all the features.
Correct.
That we can come up with. And, Proff, what's it made of?
This is lamb's wool. It's a lamb's wool primarily. I'm sure it's blended with something, but it is lamb's wool, and this is by one of our suppliers, Fox Brothers. A very good, excellent meal. I hasten to add.
Yes, indeed, yes. And you don't think that the checks are a little bit too widely spaced for a suit?
Well, actually, that's the whole point. I think, this most would consider a jacketing. And in fact, I believe that Fox labels it a jacketing. But when I saw the cloth, I thought to myself, how magnificent. And I thought right away, what jumped to me was this would make just an amazing three-piece suit. You may know Nick Folks,
yes.
Who's very popular in the menswear circles.
Yes.
And I like Nick because he's a very bold dresser.
Indeed.
And somehow he always gets it right. I'm not sure if it's his personality, but somehow he's able to sort of pull off large patterns, and he's a tall guy as well. So I think if you've got the height, especially if you've got the height and you've got the personality, I think you can pull this off. And I placed a bet on myself, a wager on myself, as it were. And so here we are.
Indeed. And have you worn it outside yet?
Not at all. This is this is the first time I'm wearing it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. Well,
for your birthday. For your birthday.
My birthday, yes. So, everybody, you're fortunate to be witnessing the launch, as it were, of one of Okey's latest suits. And it's, what would you call it? Not a tobacco brown, but
it's a chestnut.
Chestnut, okay.
And I know that I've used that word before in a prior suit.
That's right,
which
the
was
Prince of
slightly
Wales
lighter.
Suit. Yes.
It had more of a cream base. But they call this the Wootton chestnut. I believe Fox calls this the Wootton chestnut. I believe Wootton is probably a place in England somewhere.
Must be, yes.
But they call it the Wootton chestnut. It's a beautiful heathered chestnut color with sort of, you could see oatmeal weaves or sort of yarns in it.
Right. Well,
when you come closer.
I was going to say, no jacketing is purely one color, really, is it?
Absolutely. And then you've got sort of the dark chocolate brown windows, which essentially set it really. This is really, I think, a very spectacular.
Yes, it is.
It's beautiful. It's bold, but not garish.
No, indeed. No. If those checks were yellow or very bright red or very bright green, then
burgundy could actually work a very
Yes,
dark
yes, a
burgundy
dark
could have
burgundy,
worked
yes.
as a check
Yes,
here.
yes.
But I think brown, just really sort of a dark espresso brown, just really pulls the whole thing down to earth. So well done, Fox. This is just an excellent design.
Well, you can't go wrong with Fox. I mean, they've been around an awfully long time. They seem to have a very good sense of colors and patterns, and that seems to be kind of their business, is to come out with new designs or to repurpose, or what's the word, not regurgitate, but to reintroduce some old designs. Because you remember a few years ago they had Fox Vintage, and I believe they actually went down into the basement and found some old books and recreated stuff that they'd done before. But you've got quite a lot from Fox, haven't you?
Yes, I do. And our partners are Harrisons, of course, as most are aware of. The Harrisons of Edinburgh are our partners in terms of fabric. We are the sole and exclusive online reseller for Harrisons of Edinburgh. It's just a brilliant, excellent, top-notch house. Where I give Fox a lot of credit is R&D. They experiment a lot. It's a much smaller mill, and they're more nimble. You know, Harrison's, our partners, are larger, much larger, and much older.
And they're a merchant, not a mill.
And they that's arguable, and we're not going to get into that because I don't know that much about their business. However, they're very traditional in what they do. Sort of your standard worsteds, your standard tweeds, in your standard patterns, your gun clubs, your plaids, and so on and so forth. They've got that really belted down.
Yes.
Where I pay a lot of homage to Fox is in I don't want to, innovation seems to be, but in creativity. I see that they take a lot of risk in trying out new recipes. And so they have what they call the director's cut, or sort of their special edition, where they produce a limited edition of cloth. And it's in a manner of speaking, it's their R&D lab.
Right.
And so I often keep an eye out, and when I see something that catches my eye in their special edition director's cut, these are limited, of course, limited run. So when I see something I like, I immediately recognize it as a potential heirloom, such as this. So to me, that is the thing that makes Fox stand out, is just their willingness to take a lot of risk. In design and in creativity. Our partners, of course, are very solid, staunch, stalwart when it comes to your very traditional British and English cloth, whether it's in the composition of the cloth or the design.
But they cover Harrison's covers quite a range, because you've got, for example, the Glorious 12th, and then you've got the W. Bill and the Porter and Harding. Essentially four
different brands
under which they can do different things.
Correct.
You know, because the lesser tends to be the more conservative one, doesn't it?
More suitings.
Yeah, more suitings.
You know, a few jacketings, but lesser is known for its worsted suitings.
Now, the lamb's wool, you reckon, will hold up as a trousering?
I was in doubt. Initially, because lamb's wool generally does well as a jacketing.
Yes,
it's
what
woven.
It's known for.
It's a softer. It's not as sort of as durable, or it's not as tough as tweed.
Right.
Tweed is really very, very tough.
So lamb's wool's not a tweed, in fact.
It is not a tweed. It's a wool.
Okay.
I mean, tweed is wool, right?
Yeah.
But the way it's spun, and I always sort of put up a caveat. I'm not a cloth technician. I'm not an expert in weaving processes and so on, but tweed is tougher,
right?
Generally speaking, more tighter woven. It's more sort of hard wearing. Lamb's wool is a bit more soft. Right. It's sort of what I would call a close cousin to cashmere.
Right. Okay.
So for those who want the softness or the luxurious feel of cashmere, but do not either want to bear the burden of the price or the fact that cashmere, in fact, is not very durable. It's not a utility cloth. Lamb's wool is a really close substitute to that. Another close substitute to cashmere, which Harrison's carries, is Angora.
Right.
Angora is a goat hair.
Yes.
It's very soft, almost has the feel of cashmere.
Right.
But it's blended with wool to stabilize the cloth. So it's not as fragile, if you will, as 100% cashmere.
Can we, if you stand up for a moment, we can get a look at this waistcoat. And I would like everybody to take note. It's a waistcoat. It's called that for a reason. It's called a waistcoat because it comes
AskOkey, of course.
The Proff's waist. Now, it's an AskOkey waistcoat. It's obviously an AskOkey suit. So what have we got here? We've got little pleats here. We've got 2 working pockets here, and we've got lapels up at the top. And we've got, the back is made of the same fabric as the front.
Correct.
You'll also notice, everybody, 5 or 6 buttons. The last button doesn't
Correct.
fasten.
Which is very English.
Yeah, but it's actually quite a short waistcoat. And I would urge everybody, if you've got waistcoats, that is, burn them, throw them away, and replace them with something like this, because this actually is a waist, as opposed to a hip or a crotch coat.
One more thing which might have escaped your
Very possibly.
observation,
Yes,
is the way we've designed this, that the pleats on the waistcoat line up with the pleats on the
I
trousers.
hadn't noticed that. Golly Moses,
It's
yes.
meant to be,
Yes.
we have double pleats here on the
Yes,
waistcoat.
that's right, yes.
And they go all the way down and pick
there's
up,
your trouser pleats.
and pick up the
Almost
pleats on
pick up the
Almost,
trouser pleats,
almost.
yes. And in fact, you've almost got a pattern matching there.
Correct.
Well, that's something, isn't it?
Well, not almost. We actually do.
Yes, okay, if you stand...
look at this.
Yes, that's right, yes.
Okay? So
There we are.
have the waistcoat and the trousers pattern match. You can see the line
There's the pattern match.
running down all the way from here
Yes,
down there. You can
that's
see
right.
that.
Yes, you can. Wow. And that must have taken some doing.
Well, we think about everything where
We
this is what we
certainly
do
do,
here.
yes,
where,
indeed, yes.
Where detail, our business
you
is
are
all about
detail-made,
detail,
yes, that's right,
attention
yes.
to detail.
Now, a waistcoat like this, obviously, quite warm if you're going to wear it with the jacket. So obviously, in the winter, you put on the jacket. In the autumn, you can take off the waistcoat and just wear the jacket.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
That works very good. Very
Okay.
good.
Anything else?
No, I think we've covered the Proff. as it
Okay.
were.
Well, I'll return the favor, if you will.
Okay.
So Pete is today wearing an AskOkey
suit.
an
That's
AskOkey
right,
suit,
yes,
and
yes.
just so there is you're not in doubt.
There we are.
It is indeed an AskOkey suit. Pete, I'll button you up once again.
Yes.
And I did shoot a video from the workshop some days ago, and I showed your coat hanging up on a mannequin.
Right.
And I got a few questions. Well, why is it sort of a 3-button? Because traditionally we do a 2-row 3. And my response in jest was that Pete and his eccentricities, Pete likes a traditional 3-button.
I do.
And that's just the way Pete likes his things a certain way, and they have to be that way.
That's right.
And so Pete requested a true 3-button, which is a very, very classic look. So if you can see, typically a 2-row 3, I'm wearing a 2-row 3.
That's right. You
Okay?
are.
So if you stand next to me, you can see I'm wearing a 2-row 3. And you can see my coat rolls all the way down. You could barely see the first button, the top button, which is a traditional 2-row 3. But for Pete, we've done a true 3-button, which rolls up here. And you can see the entire silhouette. So this is an AskOkey 3-button. We have a 2-row 3 model. However, on request, we're happy to make a proper 3-button as we have done for Pete. But what I want you to pay attention to is the shape of the coat. Look at the shoulders. Okay? We talk about our drape cord all the time. What makes it a drape cord? You might wonder. the extended shoulders. You can
Right.
see this is Pete's natural shoulder line. We've extended this a little bit on either side.
Yep.
You can see we've extended the shoulders on either side to give him sort of that masculine.
Thank you, Oki. Thank you.
Well, you do have a masculine frame, but hey, we'll do our part to
Enhance
call it enhancement.
Enhancement,
Yeah,
yes,
there's a word you use that I like. You call it disguisery.
Disguisery, that's right. Yes.
Pete likes to use that word, disguisery.
Yes, you've got slightly larger shoulders, probably about half an inch more than my regular.
Absolutely,
than my actual
absolutely.
shoulders.
So just keep your arms down a little bit, just sort of chin up. With not in a military pose, but just sort of you've got this beautiful extended shoulders, and what it does is that it allows us to cut a bigger chest. You can see the drape here and here. If you don't extend the shoulders, then you don't have enough room to cut in this drape. Do you understand what I mean?
Indeed.
So extending the shoulders allows you to cut in room, sort of to create this beautiful shape in the extra cloth. And what we then do with the extra cloth is that it is reinforced. Because if it's not reinforced, it just collapses.
Yes.
So there's a lot of basting and a lot of handwork that goes into this part and this part to create this beautiful shape that you see at the top block. And then, of course, it sort of narrows down in the waist and then flares back out.
It does.
And the reason this is important, Pete, is that for those who don't have a natural V shape, it is a way to artificially generate or manufacture one.
Yes.
Because we start wide at the top.
Yep.
And starting wide at the top allows us to bring the coat in.
right.
Right?
That's right.
Create that nice bloom in the chest. We create a waist where there may not be one, in fact.
Indeed.
So for those who are either sort of like pear-shaped or sort of not, you can actually use the drape cut as disguisery to create archetypical masculine, as they would say, the Greek, the figure of a Greek god.
Greek god is quite
Absolutely
what we accomplished, but he's getting there.
There you have it. Beautiful shape through the waist, the sleeves hanging perfectly.
That's right.
You look at the drape on the sleeves. I always talk about the sleeve drape. Look at that.
Do we want the side view?
Side view, hanging perfectly. Pete, your shirt is a little bit long.
A little bit long, that's right. Yes.
But here you have it. Beautiful, beautiful drape. The pitch is perfect. Look at the shoulder head. Oh, beautiful. Just beautiful shaped shoulder head. If you turn to the other side as well, same thing. Just a beautiful, come to the center of the camera. Just beautiful, beautiful pitch on that sleeve. Of course, suspended over this beautiful shoulder.
And very heavily padded, by the way.
Sleeve head.
You can feel it.
Well, I wouldn't say heavily padded.
Not heavily,
it's just sort of structure.
It's got strength. It's got a lot of strength
got
to it.
good structure. And then, of course, the trousers are traditional AskOkey trousers.
They are.
Beautiful line to it.
Yes, I think
stand here, Pete.
The next time I'll probably get the rise a little bit higher. Get them. I like them up about here.
I know the way you like them, but these are reasonable.
No, those are fine.
These are pretty high.
Oh no, those perfectly well.
Just beautiful line to it, falling straight down, nice deep pleats, and full through the leg.
Indeed,
as you can see,
full.
Very comfortable. If you look at the side view, just beautiful, hanging straight down, and the back, of course, just beautiful. We talk about the drape in the back. You could see, plenty of room. If you can, you can leave it on bottom.
Okay.
I just want to sort of see.
That.
You can see all the, you can see all the room right here, and yet the coat lies down very clean. Very clean across the top of the back. And you can see the excess cloth that we cut into the side here for that extra mobility at the top. So overall, good work, Pete.
Well, thank you. It wasn't my work. I didn't do anything. I just ordered it.
Very good.
Take note, all of you out there in cyberspace, take note that I never once visited the tailor.
Absolutely not.
It was all done by remote control, as it were. Sent in my measurements, got the test of fit, made the video, took the photographs, sent them back, And as if by telepathy, extrasensory perception, some sort of magic, the tailor figures it all out and successfully gets this sort of thing in the chest just right. Because this is how it came. I mean, this hasn't gone back and been pulled and tucked and nipped and everything. This is how it came to me in the bag from AskOkey. And what was particularly interesting, Okey, is that they managed to get the chest big enough that it doesn't pull apart, you see. The left-hand, what you call it, side, sits over the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. So unless you really stretch, it doesn't pull open.
Correct.
And that's because of this good-sized chest. Plus, as everybody you can see, it's quite, there's a lot here. There's a lot. It's bigger inside than it is out, shall we say. Anyway, that's it. That's my
very good
AskOkey suit. And I'm hoping
to
get a couple more. Go ahead. Have a seat.
Thank you.
And everybody, the phrase that we like to use is not your typical suit. And I think I can personally attest to that. If you own typical suits, wear them by all means, but consider the possibility of being able to wear a suit that is not at all typical. Because I honestly, and Okey will second me here obviously, have to tell you that you cannot get a suit like this for anybody else. That doesn't mean you can't get good, very, very, very good suits, but you can't get one like this. And you particularly can't get one like this if you live in a place where there aren't any tailors. And as I said, I managed to get this one, and it turned out like this, and I didn't have to go and stand in front of a tailor. Tailor's hands never touch me. So something to think
that
about.
is the honest to God truth.
And then that is the honest to God truth. And that's something to think about. Now, okay, important point that we have to talk about. Over the last week or so, we've been hearing a lot on the social media from AskOkey about Italian suits.
Correct.
And there are people out there who are proud of their Italian suits, as was somebody not 100 miles from this room a couple of years ago before he started making his own suits. Okay, so Okey is an example of somebody who didn't exactly buy the factory. He built the factory, built the company just so he could get suits the way he wanted them. Most of us wouldn't go to that extent, I don't think. But getting back to Italian suits, I think what we do need to distinguish is the difference between an Italian suit and a suit made in Italy. Because you yourself had, at one time, some fantastic suits made in Italy, but I don't think you could call them Italian suits, because I think they were suits made by very capable Italian tailors. But would you call them Italian suits?
Well, that is a loaded question and a loaded subject and a highly controversial one. I hasten to add.
Yes.
And you have to be very tactful about the way you respond to or handle some of these questions, because it touches on and impinges on a lot of sensibilities.
Indeed. Yes.
We're in the age of social media, I'm right there at the front, responding to all the comments on all our social platforms, and I see sometimes we get really very emotional in defense of what they consider an incursion on their tradition. And so one has to be it's a very delicate balance.
It is.
You have to balance honesty with a dose of sensitivity. Now, having said that, what we call or what might be referred to today as Italian tailoring is not what it has always been.
No, indeed. No.
Now, I go back, or I hearken back to the days of just exceptionally well-dressed gentlemen like Gianni Agnelli.
Right.
who was the head honcho at Fiat for many years. Gianni Agnelli, in fact, was an Anglophile.
Yes.
If you look at all his images or films,
Yes.
his suits were very structured, very English.
And the cloth came from Fox.
And the fox came from England. In fact, if you look at some of the Italian houses, the very famous houses such as Rubinacci, the original name of Rubinacci was actually London House. And so if you see on the Rubinacci logo, you'll see LH. A lot of the customers don't even understand what LH means.
Okay.
The grandfather who started Rubinacci, that's Luca's grandfather, who actually started Rubinacci with some tailors like Vincenzo Attolini. Some of the real founders, the forefathers of Neapolitan tailoring were very Anglophilic.
Yes. Hence the fact that Harrison's sells more cloth in Italy
Apparently.
than in any other country in Europe.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Now, the point being that I think that what people consider Italian today, tailoring today, has evolved significantly, especially over the last, I'd say, 30, 40 years.
So it's the what we call the Italian suit now is a style of suit, and it's really a version of what was called the Continental at one time, isn't it?
Correct. The French have always sort of tailored very lean. And if you go back to the days of Francesco Smalto, right, you know, some of the earlier French tailors, I did mention during one of my last solo appearances, houses like, what's this, it escapes my mind, but there are a number of French houses, but if you look at old images, French tailoring has always been very, very lean and very what I would call sort of clean tailoring. But that is suited to a specific body type.
It is.
So you have to be very slim. In fact, I did mention on the blog some days ago that there is a specific term for the French shoulder called the cigarette shoulder.
Yeah.
Because it's very thin.
Yes.
And it's a very clean, thin shoulder.
Yes.
So
and shorter jackets.
Shorter jackets, smaller, sort of thinner trousers. So that is a continental look.
Right.
And what you've seen over the years, Pete, is that the Italians, again, generally speaking, have adopted that continental look.
Right.
And on the runways in Milan and in Paris, right, the fashion houses, so to speak. Now, I'm not talking about tailors. I'm talking about the designers, right? They've moved towards sort of that lean, slim, fit look. And unfortunately, I would say, I use the word unfortunately, not loosely. A lot of the tailoring in Italy has followed rather than led, if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, this raises...
So they followed the trend. You know, they basically have followed the designers as opposed to the designers following the tailors.
I would argue, in fact, the opposite. It used to be tailors whose customers had ideas of things that they wanted. They would make it for the customer, and then the customers would get into the society papers and people would see what they were wearing, and then that would become like the Fair Isle sweater or something like that.
Exactly my point. So the way it used to be was that the tailors actually led.
As they should.
The general public caught on, and then obviously manufacturers saw demand, right? Opportunistically manufactured whatever it was. Say the Duke of Windsor was wearing, or you know, whatever
Johnny
other
Agnelli,
icon. But like I said, in the last 30 years, especially in Europe, it's been the opposite, and now around the world, it's been the opposite. Where tailors, even Savile Row, has lost its soul.
Well,
I mean, there's not a single house on Savile Row today, and please, I'm open to being absolutely, what's the right word for it?
Criticized
for this, or corrected. There is not a single Savile Row house today that has a recognizable house cut.
Okay, so
You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
And
So,
this was never the case.
no. Now, what
They all now make what I suppose customers see as fashionable. And I
Yes,
think
yes,
it's just
yes,
sort of
yes.
something terrible is lost in all of that.
Okay, so what you've got is you've got a situation where what you might call the democratization of men's tailoring. So if you imagine that at one time, and not so long ago actually, the sort of style was set by the leaders of society, and the tailors served those leaders of society, and then junior tailors or less expensive tailors or common tailors in smaller towns followed along. Okay. And then probably, well, I mean, it's a long time ago now, before you and I were born, it changed and you started to get major department stores would put things out and through catalogs, and that would create, or that was advertised on television. So it's all part of that democratization of not only menswear, by the way, food, clothes, entertainment, a lot of things. But obviously what we're doing with AskOkey is actually busting that trend because we're not on runways. And it's very interesting. I had a talk the other day with somebody who represents a magazine saying how nice it would be if one of their models could be wearing an AskOkey suit and they could feature us in their magazine. And I had to tell them, well, we don't have any suits. And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, we don't have any suits because we make each one for a person. And she said, well, then how does the model wear one? And I said, madam, the model is going to have to get a suit made for him. And that's going to take about 8 weeks. Oh, well, it'll be in time for Christmas, and then we can advertise them as Christmas presents. Yes, but how do you do it? So it's always a shock for people when I say, well, we don't have any clothes. We don't have any jackets hanging up, waiting, or in boxes or something, waiting to be shipped. So what we're doing is with design, is really getting back to the heart of what the bespoke tailor is supposed to be doing, which is telling his customers, no, sir, this is really how it's supposed to be, and I'm the tailor, and I'm sorry, but I know best. Just like an auto mechanic knows best, or a butcher or a carpenter knows best. But to circle back to what we were saying about the Italian tailors, this is very interesting, because I knew Italians some years ago who were very, very keen on tweed, and all they bought was tweed, in spite of the fact that obviously Italy produces its own material and very famous for producing its own wool, its own silk. So you can have an Italian style suit that's made anywhere in the world, or you could actually have a suit made in Italy that might not look like an Italian suit at all, might look like an English suit. But I think you're right about Savile Row, and this is very sad because essentially they've been reduced to making well-made copies.
Correct.
Of, is it sort of the opposite of the knockoff?
Absolutely.
You know, so how department stores will make knockoffs of what they see on the
you look at
runway.
a Huntsman. I'm sorry to throw out names, really. You know, it's like somebody say, Proff said it. You know, somebody like Proff went there, right? Proff is risking it all. But it's true. You know, I'm on Instagram a lot, obviously, because that's where my customers are and my students are. And you look at some of these suits from Huntsman or Anderson and Shepherd or Henry Poole or the other name, and they all look the same.
Yes.
They all look like literally something from a Prada advert, or from name an Italian brand, name Gucci,
right, or Armani,
or Armani. I mean, it's like you couldn't tell the difference, and I think that's really heartbreaking. Well, it's really disheartening.
It's very interesting you should say that, because if you go to a shop and you see Brioni, for example, Keaton, Armani, all lined up, they actually do look awfully similar, don't they?
Of course, because they use the same pattern.
They use the same pattern. This doesn't discount the fact that they can be very, very good.
No, they're well made.
In terms of the way they make
No question about it. They're very well made. I mean, we talked about this in a prior segment.
We did.
You know, there is really, in terms of quality, there is no difference between a Benchmade bespoke suit and one of those top-of-the-line Keaton jackets.
Yeah.
They're very well made. They're literally Benchmade by hand. It's just they're made on a standard pattern. So it's not a spec on the quality or the workmanship. It's they all look alike.
They do.
Because what they do is that they have one pattern. Everybody buys the same pattern.
Yeah.
And they make the same jackets.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean?
I do.
And this is where we're different, because everything we do, Pete, we have a design lab. We have a design head, Hashim, who has come up to speed really incredibly fast, and in fact was, deeply involved in our latest design, the 4x1. But everything that comes out of AskOkey is an original copy. Everything I'm wearing,
to the house style.
everything you're wearing was created from ideation to paper pattern to CAD, ideation to the CAD file.
Yep.
What we say CAD, we design using computer-aided design. And then from the CAD file, we print out the paper pattern. We basically scrutinize the paper pattern, make adjustments. We create a test of fit. Or a TOF garment.
I've had tests of fit.
We make further, no, I'm talking about the design phase.
The design phase.
So there are two things, right? There's the test of fit for the customer.
Right.
That's just for production. However, in our R&D, we have an R&D unit, right? We have an R&D process, which you're aware of. And that R&D unit is headed by the head of design, Hashim Rian. And so in our R&D, we come up with ideas. I mean, nothing is truly original, right? Because a lot of these things once existed. But what we do is that we take these old ideas, right, and we recreate them in our own imagination, right? And we turn them into computer-aided design patterns, which are then printed out on paper. We perfect the pattern. And then we make a test of it.
I see what you mean.
To create the prototype.
So
and then once we have the prototype now becomes the basis for this garment you're wearing.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
100%.
So for all our customers, right, obviously it's bespoke and we customize, we modify. But the master pattern itself, there's a lot of work that goes into creating that master pattern.
I can see that.
Right.
And Hashim has quite a few things in the pipeline as well, doesn't he?
Correct.
Okay. So everybody.
So you understand the difference between what we do and let's say what the traditional Italian or even Savile Row bespoke tailor does. They don't go through this process of design.
No.
They have standard patterns. A customer comes in, they just take that pattern and just sort of modify it or manipulate it. But we create all our patterns. Every single item, or we call them SKUs, is created entirely from scratch.
That's right. Okay. So let's wrap up. The sporty tweed, the somber worsted, that's what it is, the somber worsted, both from AskOkey. And the phrase that we have to keep in mind is, not your typical suit. That doesn't mean, everybody out there, that I'm ordering you to burn your wardrobes, although you may, in fact, have considered doing so. However,
I've gotten comments on IG, people suggesting, Prof, after seeing all you guys have here, I feel like going to burn my entire wardrobe. And I said, not so fast, not so fast.
No, we don't want you all naked to the wind, as you might say. But if you want to own some garments that are essentially not only a garment but also a concept and an idea, in other words, a style. If you want to own a style, then AskOkey might just be the right place for you. Thank you very much. We hope you've enjoyed our little get-together, the podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
And I should be remiss, Pete, if I did not wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Happy birthday, Pete.
Thank you very much.
Pete.
Very kind of you. Very kind of you.
You're a good man.
Thank you.
You've been a dear friend.
As have you been.
And I
As have you been.
truly appreciate your
Thank you.
your company, as
Thank
it
you.
were.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. I'm honored.